Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. Today I'd like to outline the key decisions that Cabinet has made to reform the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 and its associated regulations. These reforms are about striking a better balance, reducing unnecessary red tape for businesses while continuing to take alcohol-related harm seriously. We're making the licensing system fairer, more consistent and better aligned with how people live, work and socialise today. Most New Zealanders drink responsibly, and statistics tell us that alcohol consumption and the way we drink is changing. We are seeing a shift towards low and non-alcoholic beverages. However, we also know that alcohol misuse can have serious impacts on individuals, communities and our health system. That's why these changes are careful and considered. They remove barriers that aren't delivering real benefits, clarify responsibilities and support innovation without increasing the risk of harm. I can run through the few bullet points of the changes that we are making. The first is that we are going to allow licence applicants a right of reply to objectors. The second is that we will only allow objections to applications from local communities. The third is when renewing a licence under a new local alcohol policy, we will require district licensing committees to change licence conditions rather than completely decline an application. We're also updating regulations so that rapid delivery services will be better supported to reduce alcohol-related harm. This is going to give clear responsibilities and prevent sales and deliveries to intoxicated and underage persons. We are allowing the ability for bars and pubs to be able to stock non-alcoholic drinks rather than only having low alcoholic drinks. There's a few others, including age verifications for rapid deliveries, a few different aspects that I think will improve business, help support those businesses and retailers out there, while also maintaining the minimisation on alcohol harm. I'm now open to take your questions.
Minister, are you essentially shutting out lobby groups?
Am I shutting out lobby groups? I don't believe so.
Because, I mean, if you're saying that only local communities can make a submission on renewing an alcohol licence, does that mean that lobby groups can't?
Well, the lobby groups can still be utilised to use people in their local communities, but what we have been finding is that some bars, for example, have had perhaps people lobbying from overseas regarding their own ability to have a licence, and that's got to stop. What we are saying is if you are within the territorial authority, then you have the ability to raise an objection, but only within that territorial authority.
So what about Salvation Army or those who deal with alcohol harm? Will they be able to submit?
Yes, they will be, as long as they do so within their territorial authority. And Salvation Army, of course, is all over the country.
Do you think this sends, I guess, the right message when it comes to alcohol harm? I mean, you say that most New Zealanders drink responsibly, do they?
They do, and statistics are showing that they do as well. I mean, since 2022, we've seen a 24% reduction in serious violent alcohol-related crime. Alcohol consumption itself is on the down, so we're seeing that. It's now looking at how do we create these opportunities for business, but also make sure that the impact isn't there on our communities.
So what evidence do you have that most New Zealanders are drinking responsibly?
The New Zealand Crime and Victim Survey gives us results every 2 years, and the latest results that came out show us that they are starting to you're always going to have people that won't, but the majority of New Zealanders do drink responsibly.
So is that just the crime statistics you're using in order to make
It is, yes.
But what about people who in their homes are drinking too much?
Yes, well, if we can't get the statistics for that, then we have to look at what it is that we can do when they are drinking from home. So as an example, we have now we will be putting conditions on those rapid deliveries, making sure that underage people are not getting alcohol or access to alcohol, and nor will intoxicated people be able to receive those rapid deliveries either.
What about the evidence which points to reducing alcohol sale hours, saving 2,400 violent crimes a year?
Well, when I looked at those statistics, I The way that was garnered, the 2400, it wasn't based on a system that I had confidence in. It was a system that you just inputted the numbers into, and I didn't have any trust and confidence in that. What I do have confidence in is seeing that the alcohol-related harm has reduced. And with that, I don't think that the changes that we are making are going to do or have a significant impact or increase there.
But you said to Cabinet yourself that evidence shows a strong correlation between later opening hours for off licences and violent crime, and then you went on to reference the Ministry of Justice analysis of 2,400 fewer violent victimisations.
Yes.
Why did you make a U-turn on that?
Well, see, that what you're speaking to there, Guyon, is it was a draft, and having conversation. Yeah, it's a draft cabinet paper, but it wasn't in the final cabinet paper. Once we started to have conversations around how they got that figure of 2,400 and what sort of impact it is, that's the thing about having draft cabinet papers and releasing it. You get people fired up on something that we haven't even discussed yet. So once we got to discussing it, we were able to actually see that the 2,400 didn't come from real numbers. So
well, it was a Ministry of Justice figure, though, wasn't it? So what?
It was a Ministry of Justice figure.
So what is the number? If they're wrong, what is the number?
Well, it's hard to input, right? So that's why we couldn't come up with a real number. We had to come up with a number through the system. And the system was an input.
By your statement, though, that there's a strong correlation between later opening hours and violent crime?
No, I don't, because that was a draft. It was not a final, and it was not written by me. So when you're looking at draft cabinet papers, you don't see the final version of what the minister agrees to. This minister did not agree to that being within the draft cabinet paper without having a discussion with my cabinet colleagues first.
But do you accept
Upon having that discussion, no, I do not, because I do not think that the number there is one that we could work with. When we look at the numbers from the New Zealand Crime and Victim Survey, it actually shows that if we were to implement a number like that, there would be a possible reduction of about 0.5%. Now, when I have to weigh that up in the balance that I talked about earlier, I've got to balance that 0.5% against everybody else being able to live a normal, healthy life with consuming their alcohol the way that they do, remembering that most people who drink alcohol do not have a problem with it. So I don't want all of New Zealand to have to be able to operate the way that the few who do create harm do.
So the thrust of these changes is to make it easier for businesses to get and retain liquor licences and to sell alcohol, right?
The thrust of this is to actually make a better balance for businesses, because what we saw under the previous changes was that there was no natural justice for those businesses. I'm bringing that back. It's a balance.
So this is a drug that causes $9 billion worth of harm a year, and your response is to make it easier for hairdressers to sell alcohol, to sell booze when you're spreading a rugby game and stuff. I mean, do you think you're really taking it seriously enough if that's your response?
I do think I'm taking it seriously enough, because as I mentioned, the majority of New Zealanders drink responsibly. The majority of New Zealanders should not be held account for those that do not.
Essentially, you're making it easier for Kiwis to get pissed.
No, I'm making it easier for business to be able to operate, giving them natural justice so that they can do simple things like being able to reply to an objection. They've had that removed from them. It's not about getting pissed, it's about being able to operate good business.
Did the police recommend that you reduce the opening hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for bottle stores, which you were going to do?
My advice comes from the Ministry of Justice, and they give me advice on all sorts of areas to do with alcohol. And alcohol, of course, is one of those areas where when we do vote on bills, it becomes a conscience issue, because it is one that is really relevant to New Zealanders. That's why I've made sure that I've tried to find a really good balance here, one that supports businesses and gives them that natural justice that they deserve, but also demonstrates that we are addressing alcohol harm too.
Just on alcohol sales to minors, you've talked about the sort of Uber Eats version of that, the rapid delivery, I presume that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Are you going to strengthen the laws to make it harder to sell alcohol to minors, or change the ID system in any way? Can you explain what you're doing in that regard?
Well, the government is instigating a digital services trust framework, which is where we will be able to have people able to be easily be ID'd using this digital framework. We're going to ensure that those that do deliveries will be able to access and use this as well. Uber Eats is one example where they already have measures in place to make sure that they are delivering to the correct people. We want to ensure that that's across all delivery services, and it will be incumbent upon them to ensure that they do not serve or deliver to those that are already well intoxicated and those that are underage.
That's the existing law anyway. You're not allowed to sell to anyone who's intoxicated anyway, are you?
Correct, but there is a bit of a loophole there in the deliveries, and so I'm making sure that we are managing that and closing it up.
So those changes that you're talking about with minors only are related to rapid delivery?
Correct, the rapid deliveries. And that's, of course, where we've been told, as it had been pointed out with alcohol harm in the homes, we want to make sure that those that are already highly intoxicated are not accessing more alcohol in the home.
What about the fines?
Change there? So what's the law change?
We're making it law that a person who delivers alcohol under rapid delivery delivers it to someone who is of the right age, that they also ensure that they are not overly intoxicated, and that the person delivering the alcohol is also of the right age. That's the loophole that we're trying to close.
Right, so how are you going to expect Uber drivers to be doing sobriety tests or taking excess alcohol monitors?
Again, that's going to come down to those individual agencies and how they operate it. But the expectation in law is that you do not serve intoxicated people. It's what we have in our bars. It's what we will expect when doing rapid deliveries.
When you look at the fines for selling to minors, it's a $10,000 maximum fine versus $100,000 for a business that sells vapes to a kid. Now, vapes are a nuisance and no one wants their kids vaping, but it doesn't change lives like selling alcohol to minors can. Are you confident that the penalties for selling alcohol to someone under 18 are strong enough?
At this stage I am. With these changes that we're making, it means that more people will be able to be prosecuted if they do sell to underage people, especially intoxicated people. We'll have a look at that further once this is implemented to see whether or not we do need to increase those penalties.
Are you actively considering that?
Not at this stage. I want to see whether or not the changes I make are sufficient enough, but of course we always have to keep our minds open and whether or not we need to increase the penalties.
What do you think about that comparison, Minister? $100,000 for selling a vape, $10,000 for selling a bottle of Jägermeister to a kid.
Look, I think that when we compare different regimes, what's really important, and I've had to do this recently in another bill, is actually looking at making sure that we have penalties and offences that are proportionate to each other. So in this respect, it may not be, but in respect of others, it may not. Well, I'm not prepared to even answer that. I'm here to talk about alcohol. I'm not here to talk about vaping.
Well, I'm talking about alcohol. $10,000 for a fine.
You're comparing different penalties. You can compare it with a driving penalty as well, and I'm not prepared to do that. Under this regime, with the offences and penalties that we currently have, it seems apt. I'm not going to compare it with other regimes because it would be inappropriate to do so. What is important, though, is to make sure that we do have our eye on the offences and penalties and make sure that they are up to date after we've made these changes, and to see how those changes are implemented.
And on hairdressers and barbers providing alcohol, you say in the press release it's a small amount.
Yes.
What is a small amount?
It's, if I can say, it's probably equivalent to what you might get, say, when you go and do wine tasting at different areas. It's around about 30 to 50 mil. What is really important for the hairdressers and barbers to realise is that if they do go over the stipulated amount, it's a $500 fine. So it's not a free-for-all at your local barber or your hairdresser. It's enjoy a glass or a beer, but if you decide that you want to go there to get more than that, there'll be a fine for those barbers and hairdressers.
I couldn't find that amount in the information you provided today.
Oh, my apologies.
In the legislation,
It will be.
It's
It's
50 mils.
Yes, it will be in the legislation what the amount is, and I will get back to you exactly on what that is.
And to one of Guyan's earlier questions, I don't think we got a clear answer. So did you go to police for their input on whether to reduce the hours that bottle owners?
So my understanding is my officials collaborated both with New Zealand Police and the Ministry of Health on the policy decisions that we have made.
What did
So
the
what
police
did
say?
police say?
Well, of course, the police want lesser hours for those that are operating. They probably would like lesser controls as well, although they are cognizant of the fact that I was trying to find a balance.
So the police argued for reduced and restricted opening hours.
I wouldn't say they argued for it, but rather that it was something that they requested. There were a number of things that they requested. Some of them we brought in, some of them we didn't. At the end of the day, I take my advice from the Ministry of Justice. They collaborate all of the advice and they give it to me as one. They don't point out to me exactly that New Zealand Police want this and the Ministry of Health want this. It's actually talking to me about the aims, the progress that we want to make for New Zealanders, for New Zealand business, so that they can operate.
Police are the ones who deal
it's more about
every
that.
day, though, including around this area with all the impacts.
Yes.
So wouldn't you have listened to the police when they said we want to restrict hours?
Just because I did not do what they may have asked does not mean I do not listen to them.
Yeah, but so we had the Ministry of Justice saying there might be 2,500 fewer violent victimisations.
To which I dispute.
Yeah, you disputed that. And then the police said, yeah, restrict the hours too. And then who have you listened to then to make your call?
I've listened to quite a few people actually, including from both sides. I hear accusations that I only speak to the lobbyists, but if you check my calendar out, you'll see that I speak to quite a few people.
I'll just ask you
And
who
with
spoke,
that, you will see that that is why we have a balance between making sure that we address alcohol harm, as well as allowing businesses to be able to operate without
But if you had the
causing
Ministry
any
of
extra
Justice and
harm.
Police on one side, I'm just wondering who on the other side of the argument you listen to make your call.
Well, I listen to everyone and anyone that comes to me on both sides, and as I mentioned, I do publicly release my calendars, and you can go through and have a
Speak
look.
to the alcohol industry about this?
I've spoken to many people on both sides. You can have a look at my calendar and you can see who has met with me.
Did you speak to the alcohol industry between the draft cabinet paper and the final cabinet paper?
No, I haven't.
Was it businesses that you spoke to that were really calling for these changes, saying they're too restrictive?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. Was it businesses that you spoke to that were saying the current laws are too restrictive?
Yes, I've been speaking to some businesses. I've had the ability where I may walk into a place, somebody sees me, they want to talk to me about it. And that happens to me quite a lot when I walk into a place where there seems to be a bar, somebody will come and have a chat to me about things. But I've also met with the, you might say, those that are for and those that are against. I thought it was really important to get a balance, also hear some ideas about what's happening out there in the industry and whether or not there's further stuff that I need to do in the future. But right now, my focus has been on making sure that there was a fairness for businesses, that they could have a right of reply to objections, and I don't think the changes that I've made there is going to impact alcohol harm.
Are you finding that too many businesses are not getting their licences renewed or something? Like, what is the actual problem?
A few of them have found it difficult, and of course what's really major for a lot of these businesses is the fact that they don't know whether or not they can continue to operate year in, year out. This is a biggie for the staff that they employ as well. That's why I want to make sure that if a district licensing committee changes their local alcohol policy, that they don't just dismiss a business that has been operating because of that, that they allow that business to make changes rather than denying them the ability to renew their licence. That gives business confidence, it gives their staff confidence, and I think that this is really important in this day and age when we need to really grow our communities again.
Give an example of what kind of changes they could make. What are you talking about here? Are you saying like they could propose to reduce their hours when they're selling? Or?
Well, that's going to be up to the district licensing committee, and I think this is a really important point, is we're not taking away that ability for them to make those decisions. I mean, when we talk about the opening hours and the closing hours, for example, the whole point of that and the reason why it was taken out is because the district licensing committees are making those decisions already and effectively. If we look at Auckland and we look at Christchurch, they have targeted the areas where they need to make those sales a less timely way. They've restricted those hours, and we want that ability for them to continue to do that. We shouldn't have government come in over top and make a blanket rule for everyone. Let the communities make it themselves.
Speaking of that and the red tape for businesses, why are you not looking at the trusts which operate out in West Auckland and Southland?
Well, the district licensing trusts are their own at this stage. I'm wanting to make some changes to support our main businesses here for operate and the staff that they employ as well, and the licensing trusts don't fall within that criteria.
Are you looking at changes though?
I'm looking at the changes that I'm making, but I'm not specifically going into the licensing trust area.
How come?
It's not my purview. Where I'm looking to make changes is in the Alcohol Act 2012 in the way that I have and its effects on many businesses rather than just going into those certain areas where the licensing trusts are, like Southland and West Auckland, for example.
And on looking at the evidence, in forming these changes, did you look at what impact the reduction of bottle hours in Auckland and Christchurch have had on violent crime?
No, I haven't looked at what impact it has, and the reason why is because there's been no survey done on Auckland yet that I'm aware of. It's relatively new. We wanted to actually see what impact that does have. What I like about what Auckland done is it's picked a specific area where there is problems and left everybody else alone, and that's why I think it's important that the district licensing committees have the ability to do that without government interference.
And what you were talking about there was reducing the hours from 11 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes. They've done it in certain areas in Auckland because those are the areas where the alcohol harm is happening, and we appreciate that they are significantly reducing the impact in those areas and leaving everybody else alone.
Are you concerned that councils have essentially had to throw in the towel about their fight for reducing hours in their communities because it's just too expensive to take on the alcohol industry? For example, in Hamilton, they gave up because they had spent $200,000 of ratepayers' money attempting to reduce the hours bottle stores would be open.
Well, I think the message for them is to look at Auckland and look at Christchurch and see how they went about doing it. It can be done.
It was $1 million in Auckland, wasn't it? It was 10 years and $1 million of ratepayers' money.
But what you have now is a precedent that's been set for other councils to be able to follow. Auckland was first, Christchurch was second. Who knows who will be next?
You could have done it yourself at the stroke of a pen and gone 9 to 9 as you were originally going to do.
And as I mentioned earlier, what was really important is allowing those district licensing committees to be able to make the decisions for the areas that they are responsible for, and I think that's important.
Can you release the draft cabinet paper and the cabinet paper?
They'll be released when they're time to be released.
Why not release them today?
It's not, the only reason why I can't answer that is because all I know is that it's a 28-day period before things are released, and I'm going to stick to what I know is the process.
They can be released before that, and don't you think it would support your argument if you could show the advice that you've acted on?
I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Once the Act is ready and it's out there to be read, everybody's going to have the ability to use the select committee process to make their arguments for or against. I need to actually work through a process that was within Cabinet, and I want to make sure that I do it correctly and don't step outside of what is the norms.
Did you get Ministry of Health advice?
As I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Justice spoke to both Ministry of Health and New Zealand Police, brought together that information and gave me advice.
And what was the health advice?
Well, again, I can only talk about all the advice that was given. I can't specifically pull out what was police and what was health because it's not presented to me in that manner. What I will say, though, is that some of the things I had to think about is what harms would be implemented if I made certain changes and what harms I can reduce if I make other changes. And I feel that I have found a really good balance where I'm not introducing alcohol harm, where I'm not introducing alcohol harm into our communities, but are allowing businesses that natural justice in order to survive.
So, sorry, just to be clear on the harm you're reducing, the harm is restricting alcohol. Like, the harm would be on the alcohol shops and not on the community.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Effectively, some of the restrictions that I've changed, or some of the things that I've changed, for example, allowing objectors to object continually, but also allowing the right of reply, that does not impact on alcohol harm. Having drivers of rapid deliveries having to make sure that they are delivering to people who are not intoxicated and are of the right age also impacts on alcohol harm. So every decision that I make, I have to have a look at whether or not it is going to impact alcohol harm, and if it does, is it significant? Can I justify it? And it's a fine balance to have, but I think I feel confident I've reached that point.
So is it fair to say that the only measure that you're introducing to reduce alcohol harm here is the rapid delivery measure? Is that the only one?
No, I don't believe so. There are others. So, for example, if we're looking at those bars, actually, there's quite a few of them who said to me, I can only stock low alcohol beer, but I can't stock non-alcohol beer. And this has been...
There's nothing in the law that stops them doing that.
No, they are a requirement that they must stock low alcohol beer and other types, but they cannot fit them. So they've asked me for the ability for zero alcohol beer to be stocked instead of low alcohol beer. And I think that's a no-brainer. Now, this does impact on alcohol harm because it means people who don't want to drink don't have to drink. They can go out and have a night out. But a lot of the people in the bars could not actually stock it because they couldn't fit it. By having...
They couldn't fit it.
Sorry, I haven't actually said that very well. No, sorry, I haven't said that very well.
I mean, you can go into a pub and drink low, no alcohol anything.
You can, but my apologies, I have not said that very well, Amelia. I'm going to start that one again. We have had bars that have asked us for the ability to stock non-alcoholic beer in their bars. Now, you can say to me that they can now, but a few of them have told me that they are unable to do that. So we have put a measure within the bill that says that they have the ability to do either or do both. Now, at the moment, they can only do it if they decide to do it, but we're wanting to make sure that they have the ability to do it and to do it legally, because at this stage apparently they cannot. So we're making changes in that area.
Wait, hang on. So any bar selling a 0 alcohol percent Heineken is doing so illegally?
No, they're not doing it illegally, but they also must stock the low alcohol beer as well.
I see. So what you're saying is, so currently you have to offer up something that's below 2.5%, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is you can have, in substitute for that, you can have a no alcohol beer.
I think
you're allowing
yeah,
them to
to do that.
No alcohol beer as a low strength beer.
But what I will get you to do probably is speak to a bar owner who will be able to explain it a lot better than I.
In terms of actual measures to reduce alcohol harm, it's rapid deliveries and it's
no alcohol beer.
No alcohol beer. So they're
Yep.
the only two?
Well, those are some of the measures that we're putting in there, but I think if you look at some of the changes that we're making for businesses, you'll also see that they do not impact on any harm conditions either. And I think that's the main thing, is to have a look at where we can reduce harm, where we can support people to be able to work in the industry, but also give them a reduction of red tape, but not a influx of harm as a result.
Minister, just one last question about Amelia's questions about the Ministry of Health's advice.
Can you speak up? Sorry.
I just have a question about Amelia's earlier question about the advice from the Ministry of Health, which you weren't really able to answer. I'm just wondering, how can the public have confidence that there is balance in these changes and that you've given adequate consideration to the health impacts when you're unable to tell us today anything off the top of your head around the advice from the Ministry of Health?
What I'm being asked to do is to give you specific advice from the Ministry of Health and specific advice from the Ministry of Police. What I am saying to you is that the advice comes to me from the Ministry of Justice. So when I'm asked specifically what did health say or what did police say, I'm going to tell you what the Justice said to me, because they are the ones that are advising me. I'm not getting direct advice from police or from health. What health and what New Zealand Police have told me is that they would like to see a greater reduction of harm with alcohol in New Zealand. I totally get that. They are our frontliners that are having to deal with that. So I understand why they are asking for that. So the reduction in hours, for example, was one of theirs that they had asked. Your questioning to me is specifically, is it police or is it health? What I'm saying to you is it's justice. So it's justice that give me those messages. It's not health giving me a aid memoir. It's not police giving me an aid memoir. So when my papers are released, you'll see exactly what the advice is that I received. That comes from both of those entities. It actually comes from others as well. There are others that had been asked or spoken to, such as the Ministry of Pacifica Communities, for example. All of that is brought together and given to me as single advice. So when I'm asked whether or not you can have trust and confidence in what I'm saying, you can have trust and confidence in what the Ministry of Justice give to me, and trust and confidence in whether or not I take that advice and move with it.